Hello, and welcome to our Lounge Alley, everyone. This is Figure Drawing Basics Part 66. I'm your host, and I will be jumping into today's sesh right after this intro. This is the Art Lounge Alley Patreon page. I got 6 tiers for you. Each one is very different. I'm going to start with Tier 1. It's the official patron tier. It's $2 per month to show your support for the Art Lounge Alley. With that, you get access to the Discord server, which is basically a chat group. It brings everybody from all the social media platforms together and brings everyone from all the different tiers together into one room, and you guys get to interact with one another, show each other things that you like, and discuss all sorts of things, whether it's art or pretty much anything under the sun. You also get your patron name listed in the credits. Once you guys start pledging to these tiers, I'm going to start doing credits at the end of the stream as a way of saying thank you for being a contributor, keeping Art Lounge Alley going. Next, we got Tier 2 All Access Patron, $5 per month. In this tier, you guys get access to all my finished pages, any work basically that I'm going to be uploading to the Patreon page, as well as exclusive content, meaning things that are not going to be posted to any other platform aside from Patreon. You guys will get access to work in progress, behind the scenes, Discord server as I mentioned, and your patron name listed in the credits. Then we got Tier 3 Critique Submission tier, $15 per month. And in this tier, you guys get to be part of the Art Lounge Alley stream. So once you submit something that you're working on, if you get a social media platform that you want to promote as well, I'm going to be doing it every Friday. I'm going to be critiquing work that's been submitted for 2 hours from 8 until 10 p.m., which gives all you guys who are going to submit an opportunity to have your work critiqued on stream. So I'm going to be showing you guys hands-on demonstrations using any of these digital programs. I'm going to be using Procreate, and I'm going to show you guys where you could improve, what you could do, as well as give you some tips and tricks and pointers on how you could improve your drawing in general. There are also other benefits as well. You guys can access this actually through the Patreon page. You could access it through the Twitch channel in the About section. Once you click on that and you head over to that section, you're going to see all the social media links posted on the right side. And if you guys wanted to access all of my streams that I've been posting so far, all the way up to 66 with figure drawing and 33 with coloring comics, which comes after, you guys can go to the videos section and then click on the collections filter, and you will see folders dedicated to each of the streams. You guys can access that. You can also access the highlights section, where all the special streams that I've been doing so far are going to be in that folder, and you guys can just check those out without having to look through the entire episode for it. All right, and with that, we're going to move on to Tier 4 Kickstarter Patron. $25 per month gets you a high-resolution digital painting done live on stream. It's going to be held every Thursdays for 2 hours from 8 until 10. I encourage you guys to get creative with it, to show your individuality. You're free to dress as you like, really. Makeup, masks, glasses, expressive faces, hats, and accessories. Those are all highly encouraged, just to throw out some ideas, but not required. You could just send me a simple photo of you from your head down to your chest, and I'm going to start doing a high-resolution digital painting, which I will send to you after it's done for you to do as you wish. So that's what Tier 4 is. Tier 5 is artist promotion, $25 per month as well. And this is an opportunity for all of those who are any of these artistic forms, really, or just artists with interesting content, for you guys to get 5-minute airtime on stream. It's a way to expand, showcase your work, get more followers, get more viewers interested, have them check out what else you got cooking, by also submitting your social media or website, whatever it is. I'm going to introduce that in the intro for the stream, as well as promote you on the social media platforms to let everybody know. It's going to be a special intro today with an image of whatever it is that you would like as a promotion. And yeah, as I mentioned, it's not limited to any. And if you guys know anybody who is interested in promoting their work, being part of an artistic community, introduce them to the Art Lounge Alley. Have them check it out. There's some important info on here. This is actually the longest one out of all of them, just to give you guys some ideas, some tips, some requirements. So I suggest you guys read through it at your own pace, at your own time. And as I mentioned, you could access that in the About section with all the other social media links. Next, we got Tier 6 private tutoring. It's limited to 15 people, but not limited to your skill set. So if you're a total beginner, this tier is for you. This gives you an opportunity to get personalized private guidance from me. And I will show you guys what you could do with a drawing that you submit, or just pretty much help guide you in a better direction to have you improve your artwork. You'll get 30-minute videos per week for a total of 4 videos per month. And I will be giving you live demonstration. So I'm going to be doing it also digitally. And I'm going to send you a link to the video so you guys can explore it at your own pace and time. I will also send you a PSD file, which I'm going to be working on in the digital app, just to demonstrate to you guys and show you visually what you could do to improve. There will be some assignments that we could give you throughout the week, so that way you keep the fire burning, keep practicing, keep drawing until the next video comes out. And it's also going to help you guys stay motivated. You'll also get a private Discord channel dedicated just for you. So each of the members of this tier is going to have their own private channel with me, and that way I can keep in contact with you guys. You can leave me comments, you can leave me questions, you can leave me your progress, and I will get to you within the next video, or I'll answer you in the Discord channel. Yeah, to keep the connection flowing. There are other benefits as well, as I mentioned from the previous tiers as well, so you could read through that. But if you guys have any questions after reading through them, don't hesitate. Send me a message, send it in chat, send me a private message. I'll be happy to answer them. All right, y'all. So that's it for the Patreon page. Let's jump into today's lesson. So just a quick overview. This was just to demonstrate how the ears have a very specific placement on the face. And it is between the brows and the tip of the nose, basically. That is the most common one that you will see. That's where the brow line is. That's where the ear begins. And at the tip of the nose is where the ears end. And as you can see, they're also angled. So it's not straight going. Excuse me. It's not going straight down. There is a tilt to them. Now, of course, just like everything else on the face, they do vary. There is different size, there's different shape, there's different angles as well. But this is just practice for you guys to have like a standard, right? Or to have like a starting point. You know, from there, you can change things around however you like. You can change the size of the nose, you can change the size of the ears, etc. But at least you understand and you practice these very important things that are pretty much prevalent on most faces, if not all, which is making sure that things line up. For example, drawing the guideline for the eyes. There aren't that many variations when it comes to that. There, pretty much most eyes, regardless of their shape and size, they line up on the same line. And that's a really important detail, because as I mentioned very frequently, if you draw something and you put in the time and detail and all this other stuff and shading, but something like that where, let's say, one eye is lower than the other, even slightly, is going to break the drawing. So all that hard work and all that effort is just going to be a cover up, you know, and it's pretty evident. Most of the time I notice it myself in other people's drawings where, you know, things like that are just missed or aren't given much attention. Like, I'm almost certain that the artist notices based on how detailed the drawing is. So they'll really take time and put in all these little intricate designs and details and all this other stuff. So they have the eye for it, but they just kind of overlook the importance of that part. Another really important detail that a lot of people make a mistake of, even intermediate artists, is this right here. So when you're drawing the face in this perspective, when it's a frontal view, this line, this angle right here, this is the chin angles. I guess this is where the chin, I guess, bends. The jawline bends to get to the chin. So this little angle, this corner, usually people draw, and sometimes it's higher than the other side. This is why it's really important when you are just starting out, you know, with the sketch, to have these guidelines there so that you are reminded that, hey, this is really important. I have to make sure that these are drawn correctly. You know, the line down the middle allows you to make sure that both halves are identical to each other. You know, that, for instance, when you're drawing this line down the middle, that the nose actually is equally divided on both sides. And that ensures symmetry, that ensures proportion. You know, things like this line right here, not only is it useful for the ears, knowing where the ears start and end, but it also helps with the nostrils of the nose, right? Making sure that one isn't higher or lower than the other. They're on the same line. So all these little things really construct a well-drawn illustration. So the more you pay attention to it, the more time you give it to ensure that it's all correct, the better your drawing is going to be. But this was really an example to demonstrate, you know, how you could use these guidelines to make sure where the ears are. And this is, to some people, this is technical. This isn't really what their idea of drawing is, you know, or what they see usually, where it's like somebody who just sits down and just magically, it seems, they're able to make the most proportionate, most symmetrical, beautiful drawing. But a lot of times, and I'm not going to say all, because you know, it's really difficult to have like an encompassing point about it, but I think a lot of artists started out with these guidelines as a way to train their eye to get used to symmetry, to get used to proportion, and to see the figure or parts of the face or perspectives or whatever in their correct form. And then eventually their eye gets so used to it from all the practicing, from all the studying, from all the thinking, you know, having to think about all these things and remember these things, that it just becomes ingrained, and they're able to actually sit down and draw things in perspective, draw them in all sorts of angles and positions and get them right, because they've already gone through this phase. You know, this is like learning the alphabet. You are first understanding the principles, and then once you do, it becomes easier, right? You don't have to recite the alphabet anymore. You just read or write. So the same thing happens here. All right, so continuing on, drawing the ear. Do some more easy demonstrations here. So it's kind of like a potato shape, I want to say, if you want to make it easier to associate to something. You know, sometimes that really helps. Just associating it to like random things. But I'm going to say it's like a potato shape almost. This is just some shading in order to give some dimension, some depth to say that it does go inwards more. Give the ear some thickness. Alright, so the same exact shape. I'm going to draw using the guidelines. So keeping the angle, as you see here, and here as well. This is one of the most amazing things about drawing, is the more you practice from, you know, drawing from life, from drawing from references, the more you start to realize how much variation there is in all sorts of features. Like even with the ear, you would think, you know, something like that, and a lot of people don't really pay much attention, but even the ear and the shapes and all the different lines and size and all that vary from person to person. So you really get to witness how individualistic life is, you know, how different everybody is from one another from this experience. How there's like a mix, right? There's a mix of how different we are and at the same time how alike we are. It's just this dichotomy kind of that exists, you know, that we share the same sort of emotions, you know, but those emotions vary, you know, so we share the same features like eyes, nose, and ears, and they're all, you know, something that we all have, but also vary in size. So it's this continuous dichotomy of like the same but not the same. Right. It's kind of interesting. I wouldn't say kinda, it's very interesting. I'm gonna skip this song. It's getting a little melodramatic there. Soon, guys, I'm going to be investing in Pretzel to bring you more variety in music. And also for myself as well, because I do tend to notice when the playlist starts to repeat itself. Yeah, just on that topic of, you know, how similar yet different we are. It's just I think it's just a funny reality in a way that, you know, despite our differences in certain things, we still share a lot of commonality, and I think that's what makes racism and all that other stuff a mental sickness. Like people who just refuse to realize the commonality that we all share as living beings. I mean, without a doubt, it's a mental sickness. The fact that you want to eliminate somebody because they're not exactly like you, that's crazy. That's crazy behavior, crazy ways of thinking about things. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. It's unjustifiable in any way. And I think a lot of those kind of people subscribe to the animal kingdom. You know, on one hand, they want to consider themselves way above being really basic, you know, being really primitive or as stupid as animals. And then on the other hand, as a contradiction, they're just like, well, we're just like animals, you know, there's the whole survival of the fittest. So it's like this, that's kind of like a mark of somebody who's kind of crazy, is when they don't realize how their points of views and their actions are contradictive. You know, they're totally opposing and they don't make any sense. You know, it's similar to a crazy person who doesn't make any sense. So, you know, a lot of these people who subscribe to that are experiencing that mentally. They're going crazy. Their entire perspective is based on something that is absolutely not present in human society. So when they're talking about like in the jungle or in nature, you know, yeah, it all exists for beings that are incapable of doing the things that we can. You know, we're able to travel in space. Goats can't. You know, we're able to create ships and create rockets, and we have iPhones. Like, I don't see lions sitting there in labs testing that out. So, like, how's that prevalent then? Like, if you're gonna base everything off of, like, well, in the natural world, this is how things are done. You know, survival of the fittest. So, which is it? Which are you choosing? Are you choosing to see things in the perspective of human beings and our almost limitless capability of doing things? Of course, there are limits, but in comparison, I'm gonna say. Or are you just gonna go base it off the natural world? You know, in that case, start building your own house. You know, start providing everything for yourself. That's what animals are doing. They don't go to supermarkets. They don't have computers or Google. It's very unnatural to use any of those things. So it's just this state of insanity where it's like complete contradiction, and they're willing to just like kill people for this contradictory concept that they keep using as a justification for things. It's absolutely insane. And of course, when somebody comes along who is really rich or whatever and starts enabling them, they're gonna be like, oh, thank God, somebody who's gonna say that we're sane, you know. and that's the problem. That's exactly the problem. But yeah, just going back to originally, the idea that we all share this commonality. We all kind of have these features, right? We have the ears, we have the eyes, nose, and mouth. It just varies slightly, just a little bit, but still, we're reminded when we look at each other that we're still similar. You know, we still have this like connection. And even in animals, the same idea. It might not be exactly the same shape. They still have ear, nose, eyes, mouth. They have a heart. They have a brain. It's like this connection. And as beings who are capable of doing a lot more than animals, we have the ability to choose whether we want to make a certain decision. Like, is it absolutely necessary for us to kill animals? No, not anymore. You know, we do have supermarkets. We have the ability to survive and create food without the necessity of like killing anything, really. And some people are going to say, well, what about plants? You know, they're alive. And yeah, you're absolutely right. They are alive. But the idea of reductionism, right? The idea of if you don't need to cause unnecessary harm, you can reduce it as much as possible. And the amount of plants that are being used to feed all the animals that we end up in, that people end up slaughtering, is a huge waste as well. You don't need to mass produce any of that. There's a lot of really good alternatives. So it just becomes a matter of like, well, I'm just used to doing something, which is a poor excuse. Poor excuse for perpetuating something that's incredibly harmful, especially at the rate and level of mass production and its effect on the environment and ecosystem in general. You know, it's a complete waste. And obviously we're seeing the repercussions of it now. Puerto Rico, Iran. It's like the idea of saying, well, you know, if I'm not going to quit smoking cigarettes, I'm going to just smoke packs a day. Like, I'm not going to reduce any harm to myself. I either quit it all or do all of it at the same time. I'll smoke like an entire pack every day just because. All or nothing, right? That's also insane. It's a terrible point. It makes no sense, and it's crazy. So don't buy into it when people say things like that. They're like, well, what about this extreme? And it's like, exactly, it's an extreme, and we can mitigate that. We could change that, we could reduce it, and we could do all sorts of things to make things better. And it's just a lot of people just making excuses not so that they don't have to actually work hard on changing themselves, which is usually the case. So what you guys are just seeing, I'm like drawing internal parts of the ear. And really, this is just good practice. Again, this is one of those things where I talk about frequently varying your lines, right? Getting your hand-eye coordination synced. We won't necessarily, by drawing this once, you're not going to grasp all this little detail. You might sit down to draw the ear, and you probably won't remember the exact lines and the exact shading and position. But again, it's bringing flexibility to your hands, your ability to draw many different types of lines, getting more and more familiar with these features as I mentioned, the more you draw, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. That's just the natural progress of whatever skill that you're learning. It doesn't only have to be with illustration. It could be with any other type of art form as well. And that's why I always, I like to, whenever I review, I always talk about having this guy. And I'm not going to get into it now because it does take some time talking about it. If you guys missed it, it was at the beginning of the week where I just go over the benefits of carrying around a little sketchbook with you everywhere as an opportunity to keep drawing, to always draw. Whatever opportunity you can get, you know, especially if your goal, your long-term goal is to get really good. It's a perfect tool for that. And for those of you who are part of the drawing comics stream or coloring comics stream where I do John Buscema's work, I made a short video about him talking about how he was always drawing. And that's why you see, like, you look at the work, or when I look at the work, I'm just absolutely amazed at the level of detail that he puts into it, the style, how well he understood anatomy, and proportion and symmetry, like all of that. He really grasps it so well and does a beautiful job in illustrating all that. And yeah, in that short video, I mentioned Sal Buscema, who is his brother, his younger brother, I believe, and also an inker. He inked Buscema's work, but he mentioned how John Buscema was always drawing. He would eat, sleep, and breathe drawing. Quote for quote. And like many other artists, I can attest to that. You know, from where I started off drawing to where I am now, it's all thanks to practicing. It's all thanks to like dedicating time and effort and pushing myself past boundaries, past comfort levels, past achievements. It's just leveling up constantly. Think about it in terms of like video games. If you guys ever played any of those like dungeon crawlers or those kind of games where you go through levels to level up. Well, it's just like a metaphor basically for what happens with any skill set, really. You just continuously push yourself to new challenging experiences, like new monsters that are, let's say, a higher level, as in new goal that's a higher skill set, right? You could just say that for yourself. You like tell yourself, okay, well, today I'm going to try to draw an entire comic book page, and have that be your goal, and then set yourself up a next goal, like I'm going to draw the entire comic book, you know, from cover to cover. I'm going to copy everything that's on it. I'm going to try to be as close to the details as possible. Not because you want to be exactly like that artist. In fact, I always encourage everybody to pursue and find their own voice. You know, it's always a lot better to do that. But for the purpose of practicing, for the purpose of understanding the process, for the purpose of understanding all different things that go into creating a comic book. Angle, perspective, backgrounds, you know, face expressions, panel layout, like all that. That's the benefit. That's the benefit of drawing out comic books. Amongst other ones. That's just like the surface of it. There's many other things involved, but most of all, you're continuously practicing, and it also takes away the burden of having to come up with something to draw, right? That's like the biggest challenge, really. Like, what do I, like when people sit down to draw, they're like, what do I draw? And if they can't come up with anything, it's almost defeating themselves, and they're just like, oh, maybe I'll wait until I feel inspired by something, right? And then I'll sit down and I'll really invest some time. So by picking a comic book, by drawing it out, you're kind of making no excuses for yourself there. You're just saying, I'm going to draw, I'm going to get better. You know, so this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do it. And the more you pay attention to detail, the better it is for you when you, let's say, sit down to draw somebody from real life, or you're trying to like copy a photo, you're doing a portrait. Your eye has developed attention to detail, and it recognizes all these different line variations, curves, etc. And you're able to emulate them on paper, which results in capturing the likeness of the subject, of whoever it is that you're drawing. So beyond just developing the skill, it also helps in specific art forms, like portraiture drawing. So another thing that I'm doing right now is I am working in layers. And this is kind of similar to painting as well. Like if you're oil painting, for example, or even watercolor, especially I want to say watercolor, you're working in layers. You know, you're starting out with one tone, and then you're adding more of that tone on top of it in order to darken it. And it allows you to just, as you go, make adjustments. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. As I'm going, I'm making little adjustments. I'm darkening certain lines. I'm pushing them a little further back or a little closer together in order to achieve the accuracy that I'm looking for. Once I establish that, yep, that looks right, you know, in terms of, let's say, the reference, I'm like, okay, that looks about right. It looks about accurate. From there, I could start defining things more. I could really start darkening the lines and boundary lines, or a shade. Taking it to the next level. And it's the same thing for shading, right? It starts out the same way. You got highlights, midtones to shadows. And if you're working in layers, you could start out with highlights and then make the shadows midtones a little darker than the highlights. And then go back and do another layer over the midtones, start darkening them until it reaches shadow level. So light to dark, that's the best way to go. To go from, you know, it's the same principle for painting as well. Like, just think of it in terms of, if you were to paint something black, how difficult it would be to make that gray, or turn it into white even, you know. So picture that, like if you're painting and you put on a black paint stroke and you're like, okay, I want to make this gray, how much white you would have to keep adding to it over and over and over and over to get it remotely close to gray. It's a lot more work, and it's going to take a lot longer, and it's going to be a waste of paint as well. But if you go the other way around, if you start out with white and you're like, I want to go gray, and you add a little bit of black, then you add more, just a little more and a little more gradually until you get to a point where it's really dark. It's a lot more effective. And it leaves you room with playing around with things. Like, you might not like, you don't want it to be too dark, right? So you could just start out with like a really light color and then add a little bit more until it reaches the likeness that you're interested in. Whereas with starting out with black and working towards that is a little bit more tedious. It takes a lot longer for you to even get to a point where you could start to play around with it. So from light into dark. And that applies for shading as well. You know, you don't want to start out with like the darkest dark and then be like, oh, that's too dark, let me try to erase it. You know, you want to start from light and gradually work yourself into the dark. I'm challenging myself right now to capture all the different shades and really bring it to life. And as you guys may have noticed, I am keeping a distance from the tip of the pencil I'm not doing one of these things. Keeping a distance from it and you know, holding it at this length allows me to view the entire image, and I can compare things. I could be like, is it as dark? Is the shadow as dark as the one over here or the inside? You know, that sort of thing. It allows me to have like a overview of the drawing, whereas this obstructs my vision, casts a shadow, makes a very meticulous kind of zone where I'm doing it, and it feels like I'm really straining my hand in that position, whereas keeping it at a distance, it feels more comfortable. Now I suggest you guys explore that at your own pace, and just try to pay attention to how you feel when you're doing one or the other. And for those of you who have been practicing with, you know, your hands really close to the tip, it might be uncomfortable to do something the opposite of that. But try to see where the benefit lies. As I mentioned, being able to see the entire drawing. And I also find that it's a lot more of a relaxed feel. You know, this, especially because of the tip and how it like slopes in, doing this just overall on the hand, it feels like there's more tension there. And I think that eventually translates into the work. Like your work might start looking rigid and overworked or meticulous. At least that's what I found in my case. And notice how shadows get really dark in areas where it's really folded in, you know, where light isn't really reaching that area. So it just makes sense that in this area right here, things get really dark. It's less likely that light will travel in that direction. It's like hooded, basically. That area is hooded, so it's blocking any sort of light from being able to shine in there. So here as well, it's going to be really dark. And I want to say in most cases where it's very dark, there's a gradual transition. So you will see, you know, highlight mid-tone to eventually shadow in those areas. I do notice a mistake that I made though, which is the angle. Like this, the ear should be more tilted. So bummer for that. But despite that, this was a good opportunity to practice shading, to really understand the inner lines as well, and to practice variation, line variation. As well as having better control over the pencil. Pressing hard when necessary, pressing light when necessary, that sort of exercise. And I feel like you could never have enough of that. And with that said, y'all, I am gonna have to end the Drawing Basics stream here, but fret not, I'm only taking a 5-minute break, and I will be back in 5 minutes to the Coloring Comics stream. Where you guys will see me do work on John Buscema's Conan the Barbarian, which I'm really happy to get back into. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. If you enjoy the content, as always, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. They both help the stream. Check out the Patreon page. See which tiers you are interested in. If you're an artist, you might enjoy tier 3 in the critique tier, or tier 5, the ability to promote your work. The goal really is to expand more and introduce more artists, get people more familiar with people pursuing the art field and all sorts of artistic fields. So yeah, check that out, and I will see you guys in 5 minutes.